The Taiping Rebellion was the world's bloodiest civil war, lasting for 13 years from 1851 to 1864. It nearly toppled the Qing dynasty and resulted in the death of 20 million people, more than the entire population of England at that time. The conflict began as an uprising and as a rebellion, but became, quote, simply a descent into anarchy. It is also viewed by many historians as a precursor to the Long March and the Cultural Revolution. In the 1840s, a young man from Guangdong named Hong Ziquan created his own version of Christianity and made converts in Guangdong and Guangxi provinces. Hong believed that he was the younger brother of Jesus, and that his mission and that of his followers was to cleanse China of the Manchus and others who stood in their way, and return the Chinese people to the worship of the biblical God. Led by Hong, the God worshippers in rural Guangxi rose in rebellion in 1856 in hopes of creating a new heavenly kingdom of great peace. Their movement is known in English as the Taiping Movement, meaning great peace in Chinese. The rebels swept through southern China and up to the Yangtze River, and then down the Yangtze to Nanjing, where they made their capital. Attempts to take northern China were not successful, and the Taiping were eventually crushed in 1864. By that time, the Taiping Rebellion had caused devastation ranging over 16 provinces with tremendous loss of life and the destruction of more than 600 cities. The Taiping movement attracted many famine-stricken peasants, workers, and miners, as did their propaganda against the foreign Manchu rulers of China. Taiping ranks swelled as they increased from a ragged band of several thousand to more than 1 million totally disciplined and fanatically zealous soldiers, organized into separate men's and women's divisions. Sweeping north through the fertile valley of the Yangtze River, they reached the great eastern city of Nanjing, and after capturing that city on March 10, 1853, they halted and they renamed the city Taijing, called the Heavenly Capital, and dispatched a northern expedition to capture the Qing capital at Beijing. That ultimately failed, but another expedition into the upper Yangtze Valley scored many victories. Meanwhile, Yang Ziqing, the Taiping Minister of State, attempted to usurp much of Tiwang's power, and as a result, Yang and thousands of his followers were slain. Wei Changhui, the general who had killed Yang, then began to grow haughty, and Hong had him murdered as well. Another Taiping general, Shai Dakai, began to fear for his life, and he abandoned Hong, taking with him many of the Taiping followers. In 1860, an attempt by the Taipings to regain their strength by taking Shanghai was stopped by the Western trained, commanded by the American adventurer Frederick Townsend Ward, and later by the British officer Charles George Gordon. The gentry, who usually rallied to support a successful rebellion, had been alienated by the radical anti-Confucianism of the Taipings, and they organized under the leadership of Zhang Guifan, a Chinese official of the Qing government. By 1862, Zhang had managed to surround Nanjing, and the city had fallen in July of 1864. Hong, alien and refusing all requests to flee the city, committed suicide in June, though before that he had installed his 15-year-old son as the leader, and these events effectively marked the end of the rebellion. Hong Ziquan, who was the leader of the Taiping forces, was an educated man who failed the civil service examinations, the tests that were required to enter government service at the time. His failure led to emotional trauma and a bout of delirium, in which he dreamt of being instructed on how to exterminate demonic spirits. Following his conversion to Christianity, he understood these dreams to be a vision from God declaring him to be a brother of Jesus Christ, and proceeded to rail against the opium use prevalent during that time. These experiences became the basis for the Taiping Rebellion. Conditions in the Chinese countryside opened the people to the idea of rebellion due to the lack of food, land, and jobs. And as Dr. Stephen Platt quoted, out-of-work miners, poor farmers, criminal gangs, and all manner of other malcontents folded into the larger army, which by 1853 numbered 500,000 recruits, and the economically downtrodden peasants were further burdened by the loss of the First Opium War and subsequent proliferation of opium dens throughout the land. One of the reasons that there was such a large food shortage was because of the rapidly growing population, which had grown to 430 million by 1850, which was a 300% increase from the population in 1500. They also had a populist message. Some of the primary plans of the Taiping Revolution were the establishment of collective ownership of property, gender equality, and an eternal reward based on the Christian doctrine. The foundations of the collectivist governing structure came from the rites of Zhao, an ancient text which prescribed rules for equitable distribution of resources to each family. It is estimated that some 20 million people died during this war, around 3 million more deaths than during World War I, which was 64 years later. The fighting was brutal.
Premium Forever Love necklace to my beautiful love. Buy this necklace, click my YouTube video description product link, and shop now.